Hello, it's Eleanor here from Hastings Museum and Art Gallery. Welcome to our final Festive Makes video, which is in fact Festive Bakes. Today I'm going to show you how to make gingerbread, peppermint polar bears, and because we have to eat something savoury once in a while, cheesy stars. Our first bake today is gingerbread. Hundreds of years ago, gingerbread would have been a very special treat because it used expensive ingredients. Sugar came all the way from the Caribbean and ginger from India. The ingredients you'll need for this recipe are 350 grams or 12 ounces of plain flour, 175 grams or 6 ounces of light soft brown sugar, 100 grams or 4 ounces of butter, 4 tablespoons of golden syrup, 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, and 1½ teaspoons of ground ginger, and finally 1 medium egg. Make sure you have clean hands and a clean work surface before you start. You'll be mixing with your hands and rolling your gingerbread dough out on the kitchen worktop. Start by putting the flour and ground ginger in a bowl and give it a stir. Cut the butter into small chunks and add it to the bowl. Then mix the ingredients together using your hands. You need to squash the lumps of butter and get them to mix with the flour by rubbing the mixture between your thumb and fingers. Keep going until any big lumps have gone and you have a bowl of what look like breadcrumbs. Next, add the golden syrup and brown sugar to the bowl and stir. The final ingredient is the egg. Break the egg into a cup or small bowl and whisk it with a fork or whisk before putting it in the bowl with the other ingredients. If you make a dip in the middle of the dry ingredients and pour the egg into it, it'll help you mix the egg all through the mixture. Keep mixing with a spoon until all the dry ingredients have gone from the bottom of the bowl. You should end up with a mixture that you can squeeze into a ball of gingerbread dough. Cover 2 baking trays with greaseproof paper or wipe them with cooking oil to stop the gingerbread sticking while it's in the oven. Ask a grown-up to turn the oven on at 200 degrees C, 180 degrees C for a fan oven or gas mark 6, so it can heat up while you're cutting out your gingerbread. Make sure you have a clean, dry surface to roll out your dough, with enough room to work on. Cover the worktop and rolling pin with flour to stop the dough sticking and then start to roll it out. Once you've rolled the dough out a bit, check that it isn't sticking to the surface underneath, and if it is, add more flour. Turn the dough 90 degrees, that's about a quarter of a circle, so you can roll it the other way, and add more flour to the work surface if needed. Keep doing this until the dough is about ½ centimetre thick. This should give you a biscuit that's crunchy on the outside and chewy in the middle. If you like biscuits that are crunchy all the way through, roll your dough out a little bit thinner. If you have cookie cutters, use them to cut out your gingerbread shapes, being careful to get as many out of the dough as possible. If you don't have cookie cutters, you could use an upturned glass to make round shapes, or make a template from cardboard that you can cut around, something like a star shape, for example. Use a spatula to help move the cut-out shapes from the work surface to the baking trays. Leave about 2 centimetres between each shape so that they have room to puff up in the oven without touching each other. Once you've cut out as many shapes as you can from the dough, collect all the leftovers, squidge them together into a ball, and then roll the dough out again so you can cut out more shapes. Ask a grown-up to put the baking trays of gingerbread shapes in the oven for you. I found the shapes on the top row puffed up a lot. Ask a grown-up to put the baking trays of gingerbread shapes in the oven for you. I found the shapes on the top row puffed up a lot, but the shapes towards the bottom of the oven puffed up less. Cook the gingerbread for 12 to 15 minutes until they're golden brown. Check them after 10 minutes just in case, but be careful to keep your face away from the door when you open it, as lots of very hot air will come out of the oven. When they're done, ask a grown-up to get the trays out of the oven for you, and when they've cooled down a bit, use the spatula to move the gingerbread shapes onto a cooling rack. Be careful, the biscuits may still be hot. Leave the gingerbread shapes until they've completely cooled before trying to decorate them, otherwise the icing will melt and run off. There are different ways to decorate your gingerbread shapes. Icing can be used as decoration by itself, but also to stick decorations onto your gingerbread like sweets or sprinkles. You can buy tubes of icing which is ready to pipe to draw with on your gingerbread, but if you don't have any, you can make your own icing. Put 2 to 3 tablespoons of water in a small bowl and add icing sugar a bit at a time until you get a mixture that's liquid enough to pipe but solid enough to set on the biscuit. The water will always soak up more icing sugar than you expect. Put the icing into a small plastic food bag and squeeze it down to one of the bottom corners. Cut a very small hole across the corner so that the icing can come out, and then draw on your biscuits by squeezing the icing out through the hole between your hands. If the gingerbread has puffed up and is cracked on the top, you could try covering the whole of the top with icing and then decorating it instead. This is a simple recipe for peppermint creams shaped into polar bears, or pigs, or puppies, whatever you like. I think mine look like a mix of all three animals. The ingredients you'll need are 250 grams of icing sugar, 1 egg white, which has been beaten, a few drops of peppermint essence, and sweets for the bear's noses. Make sure you have clean hands before you start. Have a piece of greaseproof paper or a big plate ready to put your peppermint polar bears on when you've made them. Start by weighing out the icing sugar and then sieve it into your mixing bowl. Sieving the icing sugar will stop big lumps in your peppermint cream mix, and you can see the difference in the icing sugar when it's in the sieve and then when it's been through the sieve and in the bowl. Next, ask a grown-up to help you separate out the yolk from the white of an egg and put the white in a separate jug or bowl. Beat the egg white with a fork or whisk until it goes bubbly. Then start adding a little bit of the egg white at a time into the icing sugar and stirring it in. When you've added about half the egg white, put 3 drops of peppermint essence into the bowl and mix it in. Then go back to stirring in the egg white a little bit at a time. When you have a stiff paste that you can shape with your hands, the mix is ready to use. But before you start making your polar bears, taste the mixture to make sure it's minty enough. If it isn't, add 1 or 2 more drops of peppermint essence and mix them in. Take a small amount of the mixture and roll it between the palms of your hands to make a ball. Put the ball on the greaseproof paper or plate and use your hand to gently flatten the ball into a disc, which becomes the bear's head. Take a smaller amount of the mix, about half of what you use for the head. Roll it into a ball and add to the bear's head to make its snout. Pinch a very small amount of the mixture between your thumb and finger, and then roll into a ball to make each of the bear's ears. Then press them into the top of the bear's head. Use a cocktail stick or barbecue skewer to add the eyes. And then use a sweet to make the bear's nose by pressing it gently into the snout. I used cut-up dolly mixtures. Leave the bears to dry out for 3 to 4 hours and then they're ready to eat or store away. Sometimes it's nice to have something savoury in between sugary treats. These stars are crunchy, crumbly and cheesy. It's probably a good idea to eat them over a plate so you don't accidentally make a big mess. The ingredients you'll need are 1 pack of ready-made puff pastry, that's 320 grams, 1 mug, about 85 grams, of grated cheese, and 2 tablespoons of milk. Ask a grown-up to put the oven on at 200 degrees C, or 180 degrees C for a fan oven, or gas mark 6, so it's warming up while you make your stars. Unroll the puff pastry, and then grate some cheese and put it over half of the pastry. Fold the other half of the pastry over so the cheese is in the middle. Cover the work surface and rolling pin with flour and then roll out the pastry until it's about 1 centimetre thick. If you have cookie cutter shapes, use them to cut out your cheesy stars. You can roll up any pastry that's left over and roll it out again. If you don't have any cutters, you could use a small upturned glass, Make a template from cardboard and cut round it, or just cut out squares instead. Brush some milk onto the top of your shapes so they go nice and brown in the oven. Put them on a baking tray, lined with greaseproof paper or oiled, and ask a grown-up to put them in the oven for you. They should be cooked in 10 to 12 minutes. Your stars should keep in an airtight box for 3 days if they don't get eaten before that. So that's it, my final make, or bake. I hope you found the videos useful. Have a very happy Christmas and hopefully see you back at the museum in the new year. Bye!